Welcome to the Revelation of Hope podcast with your host, Alvin Bonds II. Join us each week as Alvin explores the relationship between leadership and families by interviewing leaders in different fields all over the world. Alvin believes that the success of tomorrow's leaders begins with the success of today's families.
Hello, and welcome to the Revelation of Hope podcast. I am your host, Alvin Bonds II, and this is episode 29. Today, I interview Laura Kelly, but before we get to that interview, I invite you to reflect on grief and your relationship with grief. Most of us understand grief as the loss of life. When we've lost a friend, we've lost a loved one, we've lost a family member. But grief is broader than that. You can grieve the loss of a relationship. You can grieve the loss of a pet. You can even grieve the loss of body parts. And that's something that Laura discusses in her interview, how she made the decision to remove both of her breasts in a preventive measure to keep her from getting cancer. You'll discover from Laura's interview that she has the BRCA mutation gene. And you may have heard or may be familiar with Angelina Jolie's story. Well, Laura's story is very similar to Angelina Jolie, and you'll discover how Laura made the decision to have a double mastectomy in a way to prevent herself from getting cancer, yet she's not allowed herself to be discouraged. In fact, she's become more empowered since making that decision, and she uses her story to empower and encourage other people. Laura is an expert in grief and a transformational coach who specializes in both grief and BRCA mutation awareness. Her journey through significant loss was a catalyst for her dedication to serving women by guiding them through the grief process. Laura's superpower is seeing the light in any era of darkness. She has proven that you can break the blocks that hold you back and actually find out who you truly are in the process of grief and loss. She has personally pulled herself out of the depths of darkness and awoken to a life full of color, purpose, and fulfillment by looking through a different lens. Laura shares her secrets with others to change their individual views on loss, death, grief, and tragedy. Through her unique coaching methods, she has shown others that the strengths, tragedies, and emotional pain can be healed and used to bring out the best possible you on the other side. She helps women connect with their soul through meditation and self-love, empowers women to honor their experiences, and teaches them to understand that their personal journey is special and to honor themselves for having been faced with these obstacles, which in turn deepen their appreciation to life's beautiful miracles. After having her breast removed, Laura became an advocate for BRCA mutation awareness. She speaks passionately about the issues at colleges, regularly raises funds for Women's College Hospital, and shares her story at breast cancer events. As an expert at grief and loss, Laura has guided many women through their own personal journeys with BRCA, as well as their decision to undergo preventive double mastectomies. Laura understands the hardship that accompanies this decision and continues to walk the path with these women so they feel supported and empowered in their experience. Laura is highly spiritual, interested in different cultures, a travel junkie, yoga lover, deeply caring, outgoing, fun-loving, and free-spirited. She believes deeply that everything happens for a reason. Laura also completed Bernstein's Spirit Junkie Masterclass 1 and 2, trained with John C. Maxwell, and has studied personal growth extensively throughout the last 5 years. It's an honor to have Laura on for the podcast. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Would you take a moment and tell us about you?
Yes, sure. Well, thank you very much for having me on. My name's Laura Kelly. I am a spiritual grief coach, and I lead women entrepreneurs through the process of grief. Especially after an immense loss, in order to heal their suffering and to reconnect with their light that they hold within. The reason I do this is because it's so important for us to be able to serve others as well. So I like to help other people, so then they're also able to perform at a high capacity to serve others as well. So when I turned 24 years old, my mother, my best friend, she got diagnosed for the third time with cancer. And we found out that she had pancreatic cancer and was given 3 to 6 months to live, and that was devastating for both of us to hear. And my mom was a fighter, so we ended up flying out to Tijuana, and we attended the Gershon therapy to do an alternative therapy, which had to do with natural juicing and vitamins, and believe it or not, coffee enemas. And so I was trained on that therapy for 2 weeks, and when we came home, I was assisting her, and we were doing the therapy together. But long story short, actually, it'll be tomorrow, January 9th of 2012. I watched my mom take her last breath, and I felt like my entire life had shifted and changed in that very moment, actually. I felt like it was a huge wake-up call for me, and I really wasn't sure where I was going to go, what I was going to do. My mom was everything to me. I didn't have any other family left. I do currently have one aunt left, but we're not very close. And then also, when I turned 27, I decided that I really wanted to get tested for the BRCA gene mutation. And I'm not sure if a lot of people will know what that is, but it's the gene mutation that Angelina Jolie carries. Yeah. So my mom had it, my 2 aunts, and my grandfather, they all carried the BRCA1 gene mutation, which means that you have an 85% chance of getting breast cancer. And then I had a 65% chance of getting ovarian cancer. So when I found that out, I decided that I really needed to take my life back because I was afraid that I was following in my mother's footsteps. So I removed both of my breasts at 28. And then that was the catalyst for me to really step up and to share my story with others, especially younger women, and to show them that it is okay to remove your breasts, and it is okay to, it's losing a piece of your femininity, but really, like, you can still be sexy without having breasts. So I started speaking at, like, colleges and universities, and I am a big part of Women's College Hospital here in Toronto. Then I started speaking at, like, bra day events and fundraisers, and I'm a fellow Rotarian. And so I started doing that. But then I realized, I was like, there's more for me to do out there. And really, like, everybody was coming to me for grief. And it was, like, all different kinds of grief. I mean, we obviously go through grief when we lose our breath, and, like, get a health diagnosis and losing our loved ones, and, like, even, like, losing a job or an animal. I mean, there's so many different forms of grief, and I find so many people, like, suppress their grief and they don't deal with it, and then, like, it holds them back in life,
Wow, that is so powerful. And as a counselor, I have an opportunity to work with people and really helping them understand the layers of grief that you discussed. Would you tell us, where did you get the strength to, bounce back after losing your mother and then even losing your breast? Where did that strength come from?
Well, actually, it was a few hours before my mom passed, and I got into her hospital bed with her, and I knew that she was holding on, and she didn't really want to go yet, and I gave her the permission, and I said, Mom, it's okay. I know you need to continue on your journey, and I promise you I will be okay. I promise that I will keep it together, and I'll live my life fully and purposefully, and I really just made that promise to her that I was going to keep going and, like, hold it all together, and I just knew that I had to keep positive and that I could make it, and I just focused on one thing at a time. And it was not easy. It wasn't like, I felt like I fell into a dark hole at points, and I really wasn't sure how I was going to get out, but I knew that it was possible. And so I just really started to reach out and, like, go on, like, my spiritual journey. And I really surrendered to the universe, and I said, please, like, show me the way. And I was just very conscious, and all these synchronicities started to happen to me, and it started to feel like a flow, and I was just going on my path, and like whenever I would get a sign or signal, I knew that it was the right way for me to keep going. So, yeah.
I love that. That is so encouraging. And, because I remember reading about Angelina Jolie and what she went through. And one being a man, I really don't understand or can't always relate to that. But like you said, you lost a part of your femininity. But like you said, you still can be sexy without breasts. Can you tell us, what do you say to women to encourage them to really embrace their individuality, even though they may not have something like breasts?
Well, I show them that, we're more than our breasts. And, it's what's inside that counts. Really, and like the mindset behind it all. And, looking in the mirror, and instead of seeing yourself without breasts, seeing yourself with the strength and courage that you had to get to that point. And I mean, I'm proud of my scars, and a lot of the other women that I've worked with, they feel almost more powerful after going through the mastectomy. And also, it's like a chance for you to really find out who you are deep within. I mean, I always struggled with my appearance when I was younger, and then all of a sudden it was like I was faced with this obstacle that I had to go through. And then once I did, I started to see myself differently and to know that really, like, our bodies are just a shell, and it's the soul that's deep within that matters the most. And that's really like where your beauty comes from. It's like your heart.
How do you deal with, I guess, setbacks or even just doubt in your head? What do you tell yourself that keeps you moving forward, keeps you positive and hopeful about just each day?
I always like when I am in like that darkness, I just know that there's a reason why I'm going through this. And like, even with everybody else, it's like when we're going through an obstacle and a challenge and like grieving process, it's like, okay, let's stop here. Let's take some breaths and like, let's look at the big picture here. What can we do? How are we going to get ourselves out of these situations? And I mean, look at it as like a lesson, or, something that's just going to strengthen you as a person. I've just always been a very positive person. And something else that I would love to share as well is I went to India last month, and it was a completely different, it was an amazing experience. I went to One World Academy, and my mentors, Prabhuji and Kristenji, they're part of Oneness University. I'm not sure if you've heard of them.
No.
But it's an incredible course. I did the Field of Transformation. And really, it talks all about, the way, we're thinking, and, how when we are in a negative situation, a lot of the time it's us obsessive. It's us, it's called obsessive self-centric thinking. Basically, we're just really thinking about ourselves rather than the big picture. So I've always looked at, to help me through my struggles, is, how can I help somebody else with this situation that I'm going through?
What is so just amazing is that you've taken what some may perceive as tragedy, as an extreme loss, and you've turned that into strength, and you've also turned that into a platform or a brand. Tell us, about, I guess, how did you decide to use your story to help other people? How did you, turn that into a business?
Yeah. First off, I had an ice cream business for 12 years, and it was great, and I loved creating happiness for families and for children, but it really wasn't something that I was really passionate about. And I've always been the one that has loved being with people and talking with people. And throughout like my journey after my mom passed away, I was just like, it was like my wake up call, like maybe this is my mission and purpose in life, to help people go through their suffering, because there's so much suffering in this world and so many people don't know how to bring themselves out of that suffering. And I've just been completely obsessed, and I've been so into figuring that out the last 6 years that I feel like I've really got the grasp on it. And to be able to share that gift and to bring other women through their suffering to see in like a beautiful state of being is like so fulfilling for me. And to create almost, like, I'm not sure if you think this is crazy, but I see myself creating earth angels on this planet, where they can live in a beautiful state and then also show others that it is possible and that they can use their traumas and really change them into triumphs and beautiful experiences.
Yes, I love that. And this mindset of creating earth angels on earth, it's a reminder that we aren't alone, that we are all connected. And that is so powerful.
Yes, and the whole thing is the connection. And when people are grieving, they have like disconnected from that connection. And then that's when they start to suffer. So it's all about feeling connected and really one, like we all truly are one on this planet.
I know you talked about your mom being your best friend and really being, there for you. I'm curious what or who has inspired this, I guess, even entrepreneurial mindset, this idea to create something. Where did that come from?
That's a good question. I would say, I have many mentors. My biggest mentor, I would probably say Bernstein has really helped me create this mission-driven business as well. I've taken little bits and pieces from every single one of them. I follow like Tony Robbins and John Maxwell, Jim Rohn. I love Mother Teresa. I think that we take away like little bits and pieces from every single mentor that we have and create our own kind of business.
Yeah. And would you mind telling us about your own individual, I guess, philosophy of leadership? What guides you when you are coaching women or even in your speaking engagements?
I would define like my leadership as like really standing in my courage and standing up for like what I truly believe in. And I feel like, being really like standing in your authentic power and being truthful. Really, it's just about like truth is my name, really. Just being real, authentic, not afraid to hold back. I just want to like show others that it is possible to live in a beautiful state of being. And I know that when they're grieving and they're suffering and they feel like there's no way out, it is very difficult. But once they start to see that light, it's like you start to switch those lenses of black and white into a life full of color and beauty, and really see like the beauty in every single thing.
I love that. I'm a visual person, so everything that I do and speak is all vivid, and I love the metaphors you use about moving from black and white to color. Can you think of a, I guess, success story or an inspirational story of someone that you've coached or spoken to that's really touched you, or just something that you'd like to share with us?
Well, from a spiritual point of view, I would love to share actually a personal story, if that's okay.
Yes, by all means.
I got married 2 years ago, and of course, getting married without your parents is it's difficult to go through. And so we decided to get married here at home, and our home's been in my family for over 85 years, and we only had 10 people at our wedding. And after dinner, my husband and I, we stood up and said some speeches, and I was saying a speech about how my parents weren't here in the human form, but they were here spiritually. Yes. And I was looking out at our friends, and then all of a sudden, everybody's eyes lit up, and I looked behind me, and there was a double rainbow It was absolutely gorgeous.
Oh,
And I felt like that was the gift that my parents gave me on our wedding day. And it was just so beautiful, so touching. And ever since then, a rainbow's been showing up for me whenever I feel like I'm not on the right path, or I'm just unsure, or like I ask for a sign and then a rainbow will just show up. And I feel like, we really do need to ask for a sign and believe in it, because when we do that, we'll receive it as well,
That is absolutely breathtaking. I love that. That gave me chills just listening to it. And I love how you are really encouraging us to ask and to speak up for those things, because, the world is our oyster. We can do anything. And
Yes, we can.
I love that. One of the things you mentioned is you talked about standing in your courage. Can you tell us a little more about how women can do that?
It's about, throwing out those masks of being somebody else that you're not. I find a lot of us women, we try to sometimes be somebody else that we're not, because maybe we're not confident, or we're scared that maybe if we say something that it won't be accepted in society. I mean, I really feel like just really speaking your truth and standing up in your power and not being afraid to say what you'd like to say.
In the United States, we watched the Golden Globes yesterday. And
yes, Oprah.
Yes, did you hear her speech?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I did.
And
she's beautiful.
She is, and obviously I'm not a woman, but I've worked with women and was raised by a mother, so I'm definitely sensitive to women's needs, and I see a lot of women in my counseling practice with the struggles that they have, and you talked about meeting your husband. I'm curious to know what does your husband think about this journey that you've been on?
Oh my goodness. He is my best friend, my biggest support. He's truly my everything. I met him 10 months after my mom passed away, and I really feel like my mom sent him to me, really for a reason. And it's funny how we met, very random, but he's been with me every step of the way. He supported me making the decision to remove my breasts.
Yeah.
It was, it actually really brought us closer together after my surgery. Going through something like that with your husband, it's hard.
Yeah.
But it was great, and he's really proud of me, and he supports me 100%. Definitely. We both have our strengths and our weaknesses, but we balance each other out very well.
Yes. In my practice, I have an opportunity to meet with and speak with lots of different families, and some of the things that I discover is the lack of connectivity and lack of cohesiveness in families. And one of the things that I personally believe is that the success of tomorrow's leaders begins with the success of today's families. What do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I feel like everything that happens at home is also brought into your business and into everyday life. I mean, if you're not good with your family, if my husband and I aren't good, then I'm not going to be good. And I feel like it's so important to always keep that at the best it can be at home. Never go to bed angry. It's so important.
And let's say you have a woman who, whether she has been in an abusive relationship or she's experienced trauma even in her childhood, and she's wanting to come out of the darkness and step into the light, where would you encourage her to start?
I would encourage her to really stand up for herself and to ask for help from somebody or a friend. There's a way out of it. She might need some assistance, and it is scary, but don't be afraid to stand up for who you are as a woman.
And I think what is so powerful about this Me Too movement is it's just a reminder that you are not alone. Whoever you are, you're not alone.
You are not alone, no. Definitely not. And I loved what Oprah said. She says, "We'll never say me too again." Just so beautiful. It was so impactful at the end of her speech.
Yes, I listened to it, and I was determined not to shed a tear, but it didn't happen.
Oh, I love that, Alvin. That's okay. It's beautiful to cry.
Yes. Towards the end of her speech, it really hit me, and it was so powerful.
Yes, well, tears are a sign of strength. That's what I think.
Yes,
tears are strength. Mm-hmm.
Well, Laura, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we close?
I just want to tell others and to other women that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And you can't heal what you can't feel. And grieving is a very serious situation, and try not to suppress that grief, because it will really hold you back in life, and it'll hold you back from really being your true, authentic self.
I'll tell you what really touched me was about your marriage and then the rainbow. I'm a spiritual person myself, and I that resonated so much with me. So I'm so glad you shared that with us.
I saw that. And I love what you do, too. I mean, so many people are afraid to, do what they love and, find their superpowers. And, sometimes we need to take the leap and really just go all in. Life is scary sometimes, but, we only have one life. And, we need to do this right now. And to help others, that's what's so impactful, is when we can help other people and add value to them.
Yes. And if someone would like to learn more information about you, where would they need to go?
Yes, of course. It's www.grievenow.com. And you can check out the website there. And I also have a private group for women only. And it's a very safe environment where we support each other, and I share tips and tools, and I also offer little gifts here and there, and it's a wonderful place to just join in and become a part of our family there as well. So you can join. It's a closed group called Grieve Now.
As you listen throughout the podcast, Laura and I discuss Oprah's acceptance speech at this year's Golden Globes, the 75th annual Golden Globes award ceremony. If you didn't get a chance to hear it or watch it, here is the audio from Oprah's speech, courtesy of NBC and the Golden Globes.
In 1964, I was a little girl sitting on the linoleum floor of my mother's house in Milwaukee, watching Anne Bancroft present the Oscar for Best Actor at the 36th Academy Awards. She opened the envelope and said 5 words that literally made history. The winner is Sidney Poitier. Up to the stage came the most elegant man I had ever seen. I remember his tie was white, and of course his skin was black, and I'd never seen a black man being celebrated like that. And I have tried many, many, many times to explain what a moment like that means to a little girl, a kid watching from the cheap seats as my mom came through the door, bone-tired from cleaning other people's houses. But all I can do is quote and say that the explanation in Sidney's performance in Lilies of the Field, amen, 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 amen. In 1982, Sidney received the Cecil B. DeMille Award right here at the Golden Globes, and it is not lost on me that at this moment, there are some little girls watching as I become the first Black woman to be given the same award. It is an honor. It is an honor, and it is a privilege to share the evening with all of them, and also with the incredible men and women who've inspired me, who've challenged me, who've sustained me, and made my journey to this stage possible. Dennis Swanson, who took a chance on me for AM Chicago. Quincy Jones, who saw me on that show and said to Steven Spielberg, yes, she is Sophia in The Color Purple. Gail, who's been the definition of what a friend is, and Stedman, who's been my rock, just a few to name. I'd like to thank the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, because we all know that the press is under siege these days. But we also know that it is the insatiable dedication to uncovering the absolute truth that keeps us from turning a blind eye to corruption and to injustice, to tyrants and victims and secrets and lies. I want to say that I value the press more than ever before as we try to navigate these complicated times, which brings me to this. What I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have. And I'm especially proud and inspired by all the women who have felt strong enough and empowered enough to speak up and share their personal stories. Each of us in this room are celebrated because of the stories that we tell. And this year, we became the story. But it's not just a story affecting the entertainment industry. It's one that transcends any culture, geography, race, religion, politics, or workplace. So I want tonight to express gratitude to all the women who have endured years of abuse and assault because they, like my mother, had children to feed and bills to pay and dreams to pursue. They're the women whose names we'll never know. They are domestic workers and farm workers. They are working in factories, and they work in restaurants, and they're in academia and engineering and medicine and science. They're part of the world of tech and politics and business. There are athletes in the Olympics, and there are soldiers in the military. And there's someone else, Recy Taylor. A name I know, and I think you should know too. In 1944, Recy Taylor was a young wife and a mother. She was just walking home from a church service she'd attended in Abbeville, Alabama, when she was abducted by 6 armed white men, raped and left blindfolded by the side of the road, coming home from church. They threatened to kill her if she ever told anyone. But her story was reported to the NAACP, where a young worker by the name of Rosa Parks became the lead investigator on her case. And together, they sought justice. But justice wasn't an option in the era of Jim Crow. The men who tried to destroy her were never persecuted. Recy Taylor died 10 days ago, just shy of her 98th birthday. She lived, as we all have lived, too many years in a culture broken by brutally powerful men. For too long, women have not been heard or believed if they dared to speak their truth to the power of those men. But their time is up. Their time is up. Time is up. And I just hope that Recy Taylor died knowing that her truth, like the truth of so many other women who were tormented in those years, and even now tormented, goes marching on. It was somewhere in Rosa Parks' heart almost 11 years later when she made the decision to stay seated on that bus in Montgomery. And it's here with every woman who chooses to say, me too. And every man who chooses to listen. In my career, what I've always tried my best to do, whether on television or through film, is to say something about how men and women really behave, to say how we experience shame, how we love and how we rage, how we fail, how we retreat, persevere, and how we overcome. I've interviewed and portrayed people who've withstood some of the ugliest things life can throw at you, but the one quality all of them seem to share is an ability to maintain hope for a brighter morning, even during our darkest nights. So I want all the girls watching here and now to know that a new day is on the horizon. And when that new day finally dawns, it will be because of a lot of magnificent women, many of whom are right here in this room tonight, and some pretty phenomenal men fighting hard to make sure that they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, "Me too," again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to subscribe as well as providing a rating and review. Every week, I will interview a different leader and invite them to share with us their views and perspective on the relationship between leadership and family. Be sure to visit my website. It's www.alvinbonds2nd.com. That's ALVINBONDSII.com. Have a great day.